Hey, we're back at TRIFI 2023. I almost said 1923, and I don't think that's going to work out very well. Joining us right now is director Irene Lusztig, and a lot of people are discussing a film called Richland. Don't know where the name came from, but maybe you can enlighten us. So let's talk a little bit about your film.
Sure. So Richland is a place-based project that's filmed in and around this town that we're in, Richland, Washington. And yeah, it's a film that thinks about the history of Richland and the nuclear legacies that people live with from a pretty wide range of points of view and perspective, but really interested in not really kind of delving into the past, but really thinking about the present of what it means to people in the community to live alongside a history that's really complicated. So that's, yeah.
And that's interesting too, because a lot of us came to Richland in later years. I've been here about 30 years myself, and I'm not an old time person, that's been here for all their lives since the 40s. But you get a lot of different kind of attitudes. Is that kind of where you went with part of your film?
Yeah, I mean, I was really interested. I think there is definitely kind of old-timer Hanford worker perspective that you tend to get in older folks who've been here since the 40s, and even in their kids, kind of people who grew up with Hanford worker parents. But there's high school kids in the film. There's much younger people. I think, depending on when you came and who you are and how old you are and what race you are and what your background is with Hanford and how your family was personally impacted or not by Hanford, I think there's a pretty wide range of just different perspectives and stories and ways that people are thinking about their own history. And I really wanted to listen pretty widely across kind of a big cross-section of people, and rather than make a film with like a specific point of view that's my own, the project was really to listen to the community.
So you're not from the Tri-City area, Richland. What about Richland? I mean, why the film about Richland from somebody who's not from here?
Yeah, I just read in the Tri-City Herald, there was a cover story, and the first sentence was an outsider has made a film about Richland. I'm very aware. I know there's a kind of big insider-outsider thing in Richland, and definitely people who've been here and of course, Richland was a secret city for a long time where literally the only insiders were, the only people who even knew about Richland were people on the inside. So I came here in 2015 for the first time. I was working on a completely different film project that was kind of a road trip film where I was going through lots and lots of different communities in the US, and that project led me here where I spent a day and did some filming for that film. The first thing that made me curious, I think, is the first thing that makes a lot of people curious when they're just coming into town, which is just how visible the nuclear culture is. Obviously, there's lots of businesses and signs and atom that, your film festival has an atom in it. So it's very, very visible, and I was curious about that. But then I think underneath that curiosity then were a lot of really complicated, rich questions that had to do with just how do communities, what does it mean to have these symbols as kind of legacy symbols or symbols of pride, and then what might that teach us about bigger questions of how, not just in Richland, but really how are Americans thinking about their own history, how do all of us live with histories that are difficult, which I think we all do. So yeah, I think I really wanted to explore through the lens of this one community. And then, the more I learned about Hanford and its history and Richland and its parallel history, the more rich and complicated it. I mean, it's incredibly fascinating. But I'm not from here. That's true. But I spent 4 years coming here and making this film, and I really think of it, and we'll see how people react tonight.
That's a good question, is
yeah.
What are you hoping that people take away from the film?
I mean, I was going to say I really think of the film as the film made in collaboration with community members. So again, it's not about imposing my point of view on the community, but it was really making space for a lot of different community members to share their own kind of experiences and journeys with their own history. What I really hope is that the film will make a kind of listening space within the community. I think I've experienced a lot of work about nuclear issues that tends to be pro-nuclear or anti-nuclear, and that it's a very divisive and polarized space. And I have not experienced a lot of spaces where people are genuinely like listening to each other across these really different perspectives. I've been to lots of Hanford like stakeholder and board meetings where people are kind of showing up to yell at each other or just like there to just kind of not
It
listen
happens.
to not
It
listen.
happens here.
Yeah, so I'm very, but you know, the film is slow paced, and each person in the film actually gets a generous amount of time to share from their perspective. So I hope it just brings people into a space where they can hear each other, and you know, we'll see. But that's my hope for the film.
It's going to be really interesting to see how, and I'll parrot kind of what the Tri-State Herald said. It will be a little interesting to see how an outsider views our community here. One of the things that's always fascinated me about Richland, and again, I've been here 30 years, something like that, was that it was supposed to be kind of a temporary town. In the 40s. They built all of the A houses, the B houses, the alphabet houses were all meant to be temporary, and we're still living in them, you know, all these years later. And just the temporariness that has now become permanent. And I don't know if you touch on that at all in the film, but it'd be an interesting thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think a thing, you know, the plutonium is quite permanent, right? It has a 24,000-year half-life, and I think that's really been the defining framework of like how long this community will last. I think now that, you know, Hanford is no longer in production and not making plutonium, but is now stewarding this kind of forever kind of waste management issue. So a lot of folks who, used to work in production now work in cleanup, and a lot of multi-generation Hanford worker families are still, you know, going to the same site every day to do their job. So yeah, I think that's right, that this community was formed quite quickly and not with an intention to last forever, but because of the nature of the work and then the byproduct of the work, you know, all of the waste and everything that's out there on the site. It is now, I think, a kind of forever community.
There'll be a job here for a while.
Yes, yeah.
Irene Lusztig is with us, the director of the film Richland, which gets underway this evening at 8 o'clock in, I believe it's Theater 1 here at the TRIFI 2023. And it was like, what, it was 15 years that we're doing this? This is our 15th anniversary, so it's really nice to have a film that kind of highlights our community as part of our 15th anniversary. So thanks for dropping by, and we're looking forward to seeing the film.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
All right, it's TRIFI 2023. We will be right back.